This car helped create. He pointed toward the luxury showroom. Daniel nodded. Some ideas. Ethan looked speechless. Daniel opened the driver door. Inside, nothing matched. Different switches, handmade details, modified gauges, simple seats. No luxury. But everything looked used, refined. Lily looked around. Then suddenly froze. She pointed. Wait, wait. She reached into the dashboard compartment, pulled something out, a small notebook. Daniel immediately looked inside. Drawings. Pages and pages. Cars, design-written notes, measurements, tiny sketches, old dates. She looked at one page, then another, then stopped. She held up a page. Everyone looked. It was the flagship luxury sedan. Not exactly, but close, very close, and the date years earlier. She looked at Daniel. Her voice became small. You made this? Daniel smiled softly. Draft version. More cars. More ideas. Hundreds. Thousands. She looked up. Dad. Her voice cracked slightly. Why don't people know? Nobody moved. Daniel looked at her, then smiled. These because cars remember better than people. Silence. The CEO looked down. Daniel continued. You do work. People move on. You keep living. Lily stared at him, then quietly asked, Then why didn't you keep doing it? Daniel looked away. Long pause. Then, because someone needed me more. She blinked. He smiled. You. Her face changed immediately. She looked down, then hugged him. Hard. Daniel closed his eyes briefly. The showroom staff looked away. The CEO stood quietly. Then after a moment, he looked at Daniel and asked, What are you doing now? Daniel smiled. Repair work. The CEO frowned. Only that? Pays enough. The CEO looked at him for several seconds, then asked, Come back. Daniel laughed immediately. No. The CEO, I'm serious. Daniel shook his head. No meetings, no politics, no suits. The CEO smiled. Fine. Daniel narrowed his eyes. The CEO continued. Daniel waited. The CEO pointed toward the old sedan. You bring that. People laughed. Then shook his head. You still don't understand. The CEO raised an eyebrow. Daniel gently closed the hood, looked at the luxury showroom, then quietly said, I didn't leave because they stopped believing in me. Silence. I left because I forgot Lily. Why I started. Nobody spoke. Daniel smiled. But I remembered. He opened the passenger door. Lily got in. He looked once more at everyone, then at Ethan. Ethan lowered his eyes. Daniel smiled kindly. No anger, no revenge. Just take care of. Then he sat inside. Then started the engine. The old sedan came alive. Smooth. The CEO watched quietly. The car rolled away. Slowly. No drama, no celebration. Only silence until Ethan quietly asked, Was that really him? The CEO looked toward the road, then smiled. You judged the car. He looked at Ethan. I asked who built it, and for the first time, the entire showroom understood the difference. Nobody expected. Monday morning arrived quietly. No cameras. No headlines. No dramatic announcements. Daniel Mercer woke at 5:42 a.m., exactly the same way he had for years. No alarm. Habit. He sat on the edge of his bed for a few seconds and listened. Silence. Then the small sounds of life. A fan, water pipes, birds outside, and somewhere down the hallway, a drawer opening. Lily. Daniel stood and walked into the kitchen. Their house wasn't large. 2 bedrooms. Simple furniture. Nothing expensive. But everything had purpose. Everything worked. Because Daniel fixed things. The kettle clicked on. Daniel prepared breakfast. Eggs. Toast. Tea. At exactly 6 o'clock, Lily walked in wearing her school uniform and carrying her notebook. She sat. Daniel noticed immediately. Everything okay? She looked at him, then away, then finally, "Why didn't you tell me?" She meant Saturday. She meant the showroom. She meant all of it. He poured tea, because it didn't matter. She frowned. It mattered. Daniel, no, she looked directly at him. You built those cars. Daniel smiled. I helped. She crossed her arms. That's not what the CEO said. Daniel took a sip. She kept staring. Finally he sighed. When your mom got sick, his voice stayed calm. I stopped caring about being impressive. She looked down. Daniel continued, you learned something. She looked up. He smiled. Most people think success means being seen. He looked around their kitchen. Sometimes success means being available. She stayed quiet. Daniel smiled. You needed, she whispered. You gave everything up. Daniel shook his head immediately. No. Then, softer, I chose. She looked at him. He smiled. I'd choose again. Lily looked at her breakfast. Then suddenly asked, Are you unhappy? Daniel blinked. He looked at her carefully. Then smiled. No, she looked surprised. He shrugged. That made her laugh. Then he smiled. But not unhappy. She nodded slowly. Conversation ended. Life moved on. But at 8:13 a.m., someone knocked. 3 clean knocks. Daniel opened the door. Outside stood a black car. And beside it, the CEO. Daniel stared, sighed, immediately. No. The CEO laughed. I haven't even asked. Daniel leaned against the door. You're here in person. That means it's either expensive or annoying. The CEO smiled, possibly both. Lily appeared behind Daniel. Her eyes widened. You came. The CEO smiled. I did. Daniel looked tired already. What do you want? The CEO looked offended. That's cold. Daniel stared. Then reached into his coat, pulled out an envelope. Handed it over. Daniel didn't take it. The CEO sighed. Just open it. Daniel accepted it, opened. Read stopped. Read again. Then looked up. No. The CEO and finish. Daniel read again. His face stayed blank. Then, no. Lily stepped closer. What is it? Daniel handed her the paper. Shred. Read again. Then looked up. Her eyes widened. Then looked Dad. The CEO folded his arms. Daniel looked unimpressed. Lily looked shocked. Inside the envelope was an invitation, not a job offer, not a contract. An invitation. Blackwood Annual Design Summit. Daniel Mercer. The things we forgot about building cars. Lily stared. She looked at Daniel, answered. No. The CEO looked annoyed. Yes. Daniel shook his head. No, the CEO smiled. Already printed. Daniel looked at him. You printed before asking? The CEO nodded. Daniel stared. The CEO smiled. Efficient. Lily tried not to laugh. Daniel looked at the paper, then at him. I don't do public speaking. The CEO nodded. I know. Daniel frowned. Then, why? The CEO became serious. Because suddenly this wasn't casual anymore. He looked at Daniel. Then quietly said, because nobody remembers. Daniel didn't answer. Our new designers know software. Our managers know reports. Our sales teams know numbers. He looked directly at him, but they forgot something. Daniel stayed quiet. The CEO said, they forgot people. Silence. The CEO looked toward the old sedan parked outside, then back. They build for markets. You used to build for humans. Daniel looked away. Long pause. Then, that sounds dramatic. The CEO smiled. Maybe. Then he looked around the house. Simple walls. Simple life. And quietly said, but I think people need to hear from someone who walked away. Daniel looked at him. No jokes now. No pressure, just sincerity. Lily looked at Daniel. Then softly, you should do it. Daniel immediately looked at her. She smiled. You always tell me not to hide if I worked hard. Daniel looked trapped. She knew it. She smiled more. The CEO noticed. Back. He stepped pressure, then started walking away. Daniel relaxed. Then the CEO turned back. Oh. Daniel narrowed his eyes. The CEO smiled, saying. Daniel waited. The CEO pointed at the invitation. There's a vehicle showcase. Daniel sighed. No. The CEO grinned. Bring the sedan. Daniel closed his eyes. Lily immediately smiled. Yes. Daniel pointed. No. She smiled. Please. He looked at her. She gave him the exact expression her mother used to use. Daniel immediately knew. Danger. He looked at the CEO. The CEO smiled. Daniel sighed. He looked at the invitation again, then quietly asked. The CEO smiled. This Friday. Daniel blinked. This Friday? The CEO nodded. Daniel stared, then slowly smiled. Not because he agreed. The CEO had planned this already. He shook his head. You'd never changed. The CEO smiled. You taught me. Daniel looked at the invitation one more time, then folded it, and said. The CEO smiled. That wasn't a no. As he walked back to his car, he looked over his shoulder, and said. Daniel looked. The CEO smiled. Bring the notebook too. Daniel's expression changed instantly, small, almost invisible, but Lily noticed because for the first time, her father looked nervous, and she realized, maybe standing in front of a room wasn't what scared him. Maybe being remembered was. The day the world came looking that night, neither of them talked much. Dinner happened quietly. Lily pretended to help cooked. But her mind stayed in the garage. No, not the garage. Project Lily. She kept replaying the moment, the walls full of ideas, the unopened letters, the photo. Her mother, her father, an entire life she never knew existed. Daniel acted normal, too normal, which usually meant he was thinking too much. After dinner, she sat across from him. He was repairing a flashlight, of course. She watched for a while, then asked, Did Mom know? Daniel didn't look up. About what? She smiled. You know. He kept working. Then quietly, she knew before I did. Doll. Lily blinked. Daniel smiled faintly. She used to say I only looked happiest when making things. Lily looked at him. Then soft, why'd you stop? Daniel adjusted something. Long silence. Then, I didn't. She looked confused. He looked up and smiled. I just stopped building for everybody. That stayed with her. Lily couldn't sleep, so she did what curious people always do. She searched. Nothing dramatic, just Daniel Mercer. She expected almost nothing. Maybe an old employee profile. Instead, results appeared. Old interviews. Archived design conference clips. Forums. Industry mentions. Words repeated again and again. Visionary. Brilliant. Private. Left unexpectedly. One headline made her stop. The engineer Wusho walked away. She opened it. There was a photo. Her father, younger, standing beside a prototype, nothing like the version she knew. She read more. Then stopped. One paragraph. Short. Small. Easy to miss. It said, several insiders claimed Mercer refused executive promotion offers after his wife became seriously ill and later declined all attempts to return. Lily closed the laptop. Her chest hurt, not because she felt sad, because she suddenly realized her father never talked about sacrifice. Not once. He never used it, never held it over anyone. He just kept going. Friday arrived. Daniel had successfully ignored the invitation for 3 days, which meant he cleaned the old sedan, checked tire pressure, changed oil. Lily noticed, adjusted. She said nothing. At 8:40 a.m., she walked outside. Daniel was polishing the windshield. She smiled. Not going? Daniel looked offended. This is maintenance. She nodded. At 10:50. Sure. Another car arrived. Not one, three, black, professional. People stepped out. Daniel looked confused. Camera crew. Marketing team. One woman approached, smiled. Mr. Mercer? Daniel immediately looked suspicious. Yes? She smiled. We're from Blackwood. No. She blinked. He pointed. No filming. She smiled politely. Actually, Daniel interrupted. No interviews. She tried again. The summit? No. We only wanted. No. Lily watched quietly. The woman finally said, the CEO sent us. Daniel sighed. Of course. Video call. The she handed him appeared, smiling. Daniel stared. You sent media to my house? The CEO smiled. Not media. Daniel looked at the cameras. The CEO corrected. Temporary exhausted. The CEO smiled. Ready? Daniel, the CEO nodded. Great. Daniel stared. The CEO smiled. Car leaves in 30. The CEO became quiet. Then said, Daniel looked surprised. The CEO nodded. No pressure. Silence. Then, I'll cancel. Daniel blinked. The CEO quietly said, It's fine. Daniel frowned. The CEO continued. The students will understand. Daniel looked confused. The CEO smiled slightly. We told them the designer who inspired the company might speak. Daniel stayed quiet. The CEO looked down. There are around 300 coming. Pause. Most of them have never met someone who left success voluntarily. Silence. The CEO smiled. They had questions. Daniel said nothing. The CEO nodded. It's okay. Then he reached forward and ended the call. Screen black. Daniel stood still. Lily looked at him. Then asked, Students? Daniel looked away. She quietly asked, Not investors? He shook his head. She waited. Then, they wanted you. Nothing. She looked at him. Then softly, they wanted to learn. Long silence. Daniel looked at the old sedan. Then, he quietly asked, What time? At 1:12 p.m. The old silver sedan pulled toward Blackwood headquarters, not hidden, not transported, driven. Inside. Daniel looked calm. Lily looked excited. As they approached, she stopped smiling. People, a lot. Parking full. Entrance crowded. Screens. Designers. Students. She saw something. Near the entrance. A display area, luxury cars. Newest concepts, newest technology. And one empty space. Sign attached. She read it, stopped, looked at Daniel. The sign said, Reserved, the car that started the conversation. She turned slowly. Daniel saw it. Closed his eyes. I hate him. Lily laughed. Security approached. Stop. Looked at the old sedan, then smiled. Mr. Mercer? Daniel nodded. The guard smiled. This way. People started noticing. Whispers spread. Who is that? What car is that? Why are they escorting him? Phones appeared. Daniel immediately became uncomfortable. Lily noticed. She quietly said, Dad. He looked. She smiled. Always tell me something. He waited. She smiled. Don't hide if you worked hard. Daniel looked at her, then smiled. Small. Real. He parked, stepped out. People watched. No luxury entrance. No dramatic music. Just an old car. And a man. Then the doors opened. The CEO stood there, waiting. He looked at Daniel. Then, smiled. And said, Welcome back. Daniel stopped, looked around. People. Questions, expectation. He quietly ashled. The CEO smiled, more than expected. Daniel looked suspicious. How many? The CEO smiled, then looked toward the main hall and said, Enough that your answer might change someone. Daniel looked at the entrance. Then slowly, for the first time, walked inside, not as an engineer, not as a founder, not as a legend, just as Lily's dad. And he had no idea that before the day ended, The world would finally ask him the question nobody had asked in years. Why did you really leave?